Seltzer Kings
podcasts.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
Real people making bold moves. Unforgettable journeys into life's next chapter. This is the Second Act Podcast.
Every day is a new chance. Mindset on a new path. Anything is possible. Any limit I surpass. Everything is in my grasp. I got tunnel vision with a pickaxe. Life is more fun when you live like there's no strings attached.
You ready, John? You've been here, there, and everywhere.
Well, that's what happens when you're in sales. You travel a lot. How are you doing?
Couldn't be better, John. It's one of those days, those Mondays. For those of you who don't know, we do most of our recordings on Monday late mornings. And just a lot of good energy, good things going on, and good people we're getting to meet through the process of this podcast, storytelling adventure that we're on, and then what that has led to in terms of starting a tech company and all kinds of other fun stuff that comes along with being open to anything in your life journey. So,
you starting a tech company, or us starting a tech company?
Did you
Unheard of.
John, when you first entered the Marine Corps, that you would eventually find yourself in a tech startup? Was that on your bingo card?
Nor would I have thought anybody would have let me into a tech startup. So I guess I'm in by default, but can you talk about it? Can we talk about it at all?
Absolutely. Yeah. So when we started this, you and I started talking about our second acts, and we have very different backgrounds, very different lived experiences, and we just were sharing our own personal journeys about what was next. And through the course of that, our amazing producer, Jeremy Balin of Seltzer Kings, suggested that we start bringing on guests to our show to also share their stories. And so it became this storytelling podcast about people's second acts in life, whatever that may be. And what we heard so often was that there was somebody, maybe sometimes more than one somebody in their life, that was a strong accountability partner, a coach, an important figure that helped them think through and get the courage to try new things and hold them accountable to trying to reach those goals. And a good number of them also have pivoted into becoming a coach themselves as part of their second acts, because they've reached whatever heights they've wanted to reach in corporate America or in startups or in business or whatever. And they still enjoy helping people and helping people achieve what they want to achieve in life. So they wanted to make a living in doing that. And so at the start of this year, we started brainstorming on the coaching community and people seeking coaching, whether it be professional or personal goals in life, and decided that maybe there is some process-related issues that could be solved with technology. I've spent 18, now I guess if you aggregate 20 years of my life in the tech industry, and it was fun just trying to unpack, what's a challenge for a coach, what's a challenge for a coach seeker, and where does the value lie in maybe finding a potential solution between the parties. And we landed on connecting them, just matching the right coach with the right client at the right time, and doing it in a much more elegant way that maybe exists today. So we launched a product called TrySam.ai that does exactly that. And it's sort of a modern day version of Match.com for coaching. And if you want to learn a little bit more about it, you can head over to trisam.ai and learn about what we're up to from a technology perspective. So it's been fun.
That's the bomb. Colorado Startup Tech Week last week, right? And saw you out there promoting this technology, and it's just something, again, unthought of in my world or with my career backgrounds. But that's also an incredible segue
It is.
to the guest we have today that you're going to introduce. And
Yes.
he's in a lot of blue and orange. So for those of you that can't watch, just imagine we got a huge Broncos fan here, which my son is going to be thrilled. He'll watch this episode. But you want to introduce him?
Absolutely. Our guest today has been instrumental in the formation of this. I was just reaching out to a bunch of random people months ago just to learn about some of these pain points. And our guest was gracious enough to help me understand the market dynamics and the problems and be part of the research and discovery component of all of this. So I can't thank him enough. And with that said, I'm very excited to introduce our next guest, JB Bolton. JB built his career leading high-growth SaaS and technology companies, guiding teams through the challenges of scale, innovation, and transformation. He held senior leadership roles across multiple organizations, culminating as the Chief Customer Officer at BombBomb, and serves on the board of Portal Bikes, a social enterprise creating adaptable bicycles that transform lives in developing countries. These experiences gave him a front row seat to the opportunities and obstacles leaders face and revealed how coaching can unlock clarity, resilience, and growth. Today, JB draws on both executive leadership and 3 coaching certifications to empower individuals and teams nationwide to align vision with values, get unstuck, and achieve lasting impact. Another incredible human in the Colorado community. We're excited to dig into his journey today. Welcome to the show, JB.
Thank you so much. Great to be with you, gentlemen. Thank you for the warm welcome and for your support, your support of the Broncos. Obviously, I mean, this is going to date our recording here a little bit, but Monday Night Football. Just so diehard fans know, I do not wear the jersey when it's not game day. But I thought it would be a fun addition to the conversation today. So honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And just found out we're practically neighbors. So our next meeting, JB, unfortunately for you, is going to be in person.
In person. Hey, that is, honestly, I wish we could do more meetings in person. I think I spend a lot of time virtually and have been trying to be really intentional about just getting face-to-face more often. So let's do it.
It's a true game changer.
It is.
Well, after that intro, I'm curious, and we talked about just briefly before we started recording, but I called you a unicorn, a Colorado unicorn. So you're from Colorado Springs, born and raised. Now you're here doing life and making it happen. Tell me about childhood memories, early moments that kind of started this trajectory of where you're at now.
Yeah, totally. Colorado Springs native. I know I'm getting old because I'm starting to complain on the regular about how this place isn't the Colorado that I grew up in. And usually it's in regard to like camping or hiking or some sort of outdoor activity where I remember my dad like loading up our 74 Buick, right? And we'd make like a 30-minute drive up like Highway 24 and there'd be 7 different campsites to pick from, and we had a great family time. So yeah, my folks met here in Colorado Springs.
Wow.
My both of them grew up in agricultural communities. My mom in Ohio, my dad in Illinois. And my mom moved out here for nursing school, and my dad moved out here as an electrical engineer and joined a company called Ampex. They were one of the early Colorado Springs tech companies that actually helped develop video recording and modern broadcasting hardware. Technically, it was hardware. There used to be machines that would run and grab the commercial tape and then fly down a track and put it in the player and play the commercial. And then it would suck the tape out and scream back down a track and pick up another tape. It was crazy to watch them run back in the day. Being a little kid, it was fun kind of touring there. But they met at the Green Tree Village Apartments on, what is it? North Carefree and Academy. And then I was then I was born. So oldest of three kids, and had a great family upbringing. Have a lot of gratitude for my parents who, ideally, when we have supportive family, hopefully our parents are some of our strongest mentors, coaches, supporters, and teachers. And I'm very fortunate that that was my experience growing up. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun being a kid here, and it's a lot of fun being a grown up here and raising my kid here. And it's just an amazing, amazing place to be. And I like getting out in nature in Colorado. It just gives us perspective, I think. There's a lot of health to be gained from stepping away from our screens for a minute
Yes.
and just taking in some awe and just being kind of humbled and getting some universe perspective on some of these challenges that we deal with, I think, in business and our professional lives. So ultimately graduated from University of Colorado in Colorado Springs with a degree in communications. Thought maybe Thought maybe I was gonna go into broadcasting and radio. Then I realized that you work terrible hours and you make no money, and I'm like, "Man, gosh, that could be real tough." And ended up getting into sales pretty early, so did retail sales and leadership early, then, spent some time at a financial management company and really cut my leadership teeth there for about 7.5 years. And I would say my that was kind of the closing of my first act was when my daughter was born.
Okay.
And I'm like, "What am I doing with my life? Where am I headed?" And that opened up kind of a unique second act into tech and spent some time as one of the founding members of the executive leadership team building a SaaS company, an asynchronous video communication company, which now is like, "Oh, yeah, I know what that is." But I mean, this company started before cell phones had cameras on them, so it was really, really unique, when it started, and we would send video communication. A lot of businesses and of all sizes would use, video for marketing and continue to do so. So, got to be part of that journey, during its award-winning years and its rapid growth years. And, when that came to a close in February of '23, that's when I started jumping into coaching. So that's kind of the high level overview of what that career trajectory looked like for me.
So you covered a lot in a few minutes there,
You ready to double
and
click? Is it time to
yeah,
double
we're
click?
we're we're gonna double and triple click into that a little bit. As you were growing up and you were sharing a little bit more about your parents. It's funny. I think we're maybe kind of sort of around the same age. I don't recall my parents ever having those moments of like, what do I do next? What am I going to do when I grow up? What am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
When we came around, I feel like that's more of a new phenomenon.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if, as you were growing up in the Springs with your family, if there were maybe some moments that did stand out from your childhood that you vividly remember that influenced the later years of your life, becoming a parent, switching industries, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, let's acknowledge that it is a little unique that we find ourselves in a season where we get to consider our career. I would suggest that many of our parents and certainly their parents were not granted that same privilege. And most people throughout the world are not granted that same privilege. In fact, in many cases, your career is determined by your surname, right? Where you are born and what you are born into. And so when I think about as I think the only reason I mention that, folks, is so that we can remind ourselves what a privilege it is to wrestle through what a second act might look like. What a privilege it is to ponder what greater meaning and greater purpose and greater impact and greater success could look like for us. So I just want to mark that for a minute because it's not lost on me, and I'm so thankful for it. When I think about the kind of the focus of our conversation today, I did get to watch my parents puzzle through different career stages. They were pretty transparent, and I would hear them at the dinner table talk about making or taking a role for budget reasons, right? And hey, should we do this and pay this debt off faster so that dot dot dot. And my parents engaged us a little bit in some of that conversation, which was helpful just to gain that perspective and learn a little bit about how we prioritize and what a pros and cons list look like and how we come to those decisions. And my dad started as an electrical engineer, but got into leadership and, eventually went back to school for his master's. He was in school while we were in school. And that had meaningful impact on me, watching my dad go to work all day and then come home and like crush through some stuff for his master's, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I could. Honestly, I do not know that I could do that today. I would just have a tremendous amount of respect for the decisions that he made. He really wanted to grow and develop his leadership career. And then he spent some time in the high tech world as well, and ultimately started his own business too, doing business process consulting. This would be more at the enterprise level, ITIL standards for high
Okay.
tech companies and that sort of thing. So yeah, that had a significant impact, certainly for me to kind of watch that experience and know that it's okay to kind of ask those questions and puzzle through some of those things.
How old were you when you started to be involved and then recognize the things that were being talked about from like planning and budgeting and those sorts of important life skills?
Yeah, it would have been earlier in high school, probably, where
Okay.
some of that stuff started to take on more meaning to me, right? But my folks were pretty thoughtful about the way they translated and engaged the family in that.
Yeah.
So
That's very cool.
What I like is this nonlinear path that seems like you were on from radio to finance. And I'm really curious to hear about what Bomb Bomb is. But it seemed when Michael was going through your bio and you're talking here before you start talking about your dad, it seemed very interesting how you would make these pivots. But now I'm seeing as you live with somebody who is modeling those changes and or the ability to adapt, that it comes more naturally for you. And I've talked to several people, or we have talked to several people on the show that have made similar pivots in and out of industry or different industries, and they seem to be able to do that because of the people they were around when they were younger, and it breaks down those barriers, and it shows them that almost anything's possible. You can do whatever you want, just think it, accept it, and start going from there. So I want to hear about some of these other things, but I'm really inspired by your growth up to this point.
yeah, 100%. Courage is the word that came to my mind as you were recounting that for us, right? I mean, it's not quite as daunting when we see the people around us making moves, and you're like, oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. I might be okay if I try. It just gives you a little bit more courage, I think, to approach some of those transitions or some of those changes. And you also start to realize that a lot of the knowledge that we possess that makes us successful in our careers as leaders translates across different fields and different size companies. Now, will you have to learn a little bit of a new way of operating, maybe even some new language, some new kind of at scale, like an enterprise company functions 100% differently than a solopreneurship does, right? But fundamentally, that truth is still truth across different companies and different industries. And when you see other people wield those same skills across industry, it does give us courage, I think. So great call out.
Yeah, I love that.
So you got the courage to jump into sales, which is a whole nother level of courage because you're in control, at least in some of my own personal experience. It seems like you're in control of so little. And the part that you are in control of, you have to almost execute flawlessly so that all the other variability around that allows for that small part you're in control of to be successful. But maybe you have a completely different lived experience through the sales journey. So why don't you take us a little bit through that and how courage played a role in that and the ups and downs of life carrying a bag or
Yeah, yeah, great
driving revenue.
question. Carrying a bag, great question. I was one of those kids who like sales was kind of like one of those like, hey, you'd be great at sales. You'd be great at sales. I think because I enjoy engaging with humans, hearing their story, helping them solve their problem, I appreciate the powerful transfer of emotion that happens in the context of sales. And so I didn't approach sales as sales. I approached it as relationship. I don't know that I would say there's a better word for it than relationship, right? Hey, what are you looking to do? Oh, that's interesting. Why is that important to you? Oh, okay. Well, what have you tried so far? What if you did something like this? Oh, you tried that? What worked and didn't like, I mean, it just, that process to me, that relationship, that engagement of helping people solve challenging problems or accomplish meaningful things, or even just do something fun. I met my wife at the mall. I worked at the mall. I worked in retail sales. That's fun. Somebody comes in because they got a thing coming up and they want a new, t-shirt, and I'm like, oh, look at this one. I love it. Oh, JB, I hate that shirt. Oh, what do you hate about it? Well, I don't wear any of those colors. I only wear these colors. Oh, good. Well, thank you for telling. You should have told me that in the first place. Come over here and look at this one. Like, that's fun. I mean, so I think I just kind of naively stumbled into sales. Really, it was in my FinServ, my financial services career where that sales stuff started to take off because then I was working at an enterprise level compared against national sales professionals and really started to realize that my sales skills were different than the other, the other folks that I was working against because you've got now measurable data. So you know how you're performing, across many, many, many other sales professionals. And honestly, I cannot say that I read powerful books and that, I had a guru that gave me everything I know. I just kind of, honestly, I naively stepped into some of that sales success. But one of the first things that I remember is being asked to participate in a pilot program that was called a sales lab. And what the company decided to do was grab high performing sales professionals across the nation and put them whose behavior seemed like outliers to the data set and put them in a pool to develop and test experiments on how to improve sales performance. And it was a blast. 'Cause now I'm being, I'm running along with a bunch of other nerds like me who are like, "Oh, this is kind of interesting. What if we try this? What do you think's making this successful? Why is this data point an outlier? Like, how could we go test and then build process that we could roll out at scale?" So I think, when we have people that see us and that can call out strengths, right, and character early in our lives and early in our development careers. And by the way, when I say early, I mean at this stage, I'm talking about 20s. I'm talking about in my 20s. I'm not talking about 14. I'm talking about in my 20s, another leader at the organization saying, "Hey man, you should try this over here." Boy, that is a lot of win in the sales, isn't it? And not everybody gets that experience either. But when we see that, but by the way, note to leaders listening to our podcast, how critical that is for us to be able to see that and to call that out and invite people to the table to exercise in their wheelhouse and in their
Yeah.
strengths. I think that's significant. So that's how I got into sales. And pretty quickly, Michael, that led to leadership, which is really common track. So, right, you get like all of a sudden top performing people who've never led people before. Have you heard this narrative before? Are then placed in leadership roles and have to learn very quickly, sink or swim. And not everybody who is a really key individual contributor knows how to translate that to a team or a group of people. It just so happened that I did, and that was really the beginning of a key part of kind of my leadership career.
JB, you're talking about you standing out in a group of other sales personnel. What are some of the markers that you exhibited that made you stand out? Or what are some of the things that you are aware of that pushed you to the front of the line?
Great question. I'm going to read into the spirit of the question a little bit rather than get real specific and tactical. I mean, I think we
Sure.
can get specific and tactical, but I think the indicator that we will find is that people will start to comment about something that you feel like is totally like so normal that you don't even think about it, but to them they view it as an outlier. How do you do that? Why do you, and you're like, I don't know. I don't even think about that. And listen, this could be anything. This could be the way that you write. It could be the way that you think. It could be the way that you connect with another human being. It could be the way that you put in hours where other people can't. It could be the way that you solve a problem. It could be the way that you address conflict. People will comment. People who you know and trust will start to comment about something that just seems so just, you don't even like, how do you catch the ball like that? I don't know. I've never really thought about it. That to me, I think is a key indicator that you are knocking on the door of your unique wiring, your unique design, and that it's something that you should be pay attention to. Be curious about that. Oh, I don't know. I guess I've never thought about that. Why is that? I think that for us in our career, and even today, when I work as an executive coach, sometimes really gifted people don't yet understand completely how they're really gifted. And those were some early indicators for me. So in my sales career, it was something like that. How are you doing? How are you putting up those numbers? Oh, what do you mean? Well, why are these numbers converting at a higher level than your peers?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know. How are my calls different than theirs? And what I thought was very natural ended up being actually pretty unique in the field.
Interesting. I would imagine some of the greatest athletes, that's how they grow up thinking and getting questioned. How do when you're rattling off the how do yous, that's probably how they respond is, I don't know. It's just what I do naturally and it propels them into greatness. So that's a really cool reflection and that
It,
helps. I also am in sales, so I'm around a lot of similar people and you see the people that stand out and it always piques my interest. What makes them stand out? Is it effort? Is it practice? Is it all the above? Or is it just something that's an outlier? So
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah. Great question. And we can get into some of the details, from a sales standpoint. But I mean, these are things that you would know. I mean, we tend to you're looking at volume and you're looking at quality. And you want some combination of both volume and quality as a sales professional to be able to deliver key results. That requires a pretty high level of discernment, especially if you're operating in a high volume sort of a situation. You need to know where you're spending your time and energy. And then you're looking for high conversion percentages as well. So, and you gotta like that. You gotta like that challenge. And you gotta be pretty resilient as well. I think to know how to, not everybody's a fit, and that's not your problem. That's product market fit, right? That's, as long as you've done a good job to kind of qualify that, that's a product market fit challenge, and that's okay. I mean, that's just not your ICP that you're going to operate with. So that's probably for another podcast. We could get into that.
it's part two
Yep.
of the JB Bolton podcast.
There you go.
But the characteristics you mentioned around courage, I think in a version of a genuine curiosity for what's going on and what people need or see value in, having the explorer mindset and being resilient seem to all stem back to those dinner table conversations with your parents and then through your life experience in retail sales and then into financial services sales and then I think what led you into tech sales and then leadership. I'm curious how that unfolded for you when you got into sales in tech, how long you stayed there, and then when that opportunity opened up for you to take a leadership role and what that started to look like.
Awesome. Okay, so there's this fun little subplot twist that I will introduce
Okay,
here, which is
nice.
I'm working at T. Rowe Price, which is an investment management company. They're recognizable. They do mutual funds. If you're not familiar with them, like a Fidelity or a Vanguard or something like that. And when you work for large enterprise organizations, the career tracks are pretty mapped out, right? There are teams of people that kind of help determine what's career growth look like, who's likely to be our next leader, how would they advance, what does that process look like, and I have some respect and appreciation for that process. I think it's great. I think it keeps employees at the company to know how to be challenged and engaged and continue to move forward. And I have a lot of gratitude for the time that I spent there. And then my daughter was born. And for those who know what that experience is like, the easiest way to translate this is that life and death always provide us with unique opportunity to reprioritize. It will shake you
That's
in the
good.
best of ways and will cause you to reassess in all the best ways, in all the best ways. And such was the case when my daughter was born. So I'm like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my life? And for me, I started to look at the career path that I was on, and then I started to look at people ahead of me, maybe by a decade or two, on that career path, and ask myself the question, do I want that? And I came to the conclusion that the answer was no. And that was really disruptive for me. Really disruptive for me because I finally, being a kid and then being a teen and then being a 20, found myself in a situation where I had worked for 7.5 years at the same company. Like, I'm like, my dad is gonna be so proud of me. Like, I stayed at the same. This used to be a thing, folks.
Yeah, yeah.
I know it's a bunch of old guys on the podcast right now, but this used to be a thing that you would stay at a company. In fact, our fathers had pensions. That doesn't even exist anymore, really. I mean, this was the kind of environment that I was in. So this was really disruptive for me.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
The Who's Down in Who Newville were making their list, but some didn't know Walmart has the best brands for their gifts.
What about toys? Do they have brands kids have been wanting all year?
Yep, Barbie, Tony's, and Lego. Gifts that will make them all cheer.
Do you mean they have all the brands I adore?
They have Nintendo, Nespresso, Apple, and more.
What about...
So the Who answered questions from friends till they were blue. Each one listened and shouted, from Walmart? Who knew? Shop gifts from top brands for everyone on your list in the Walmart app.
I'm going to make a long story really short. Michael's heard part of this, but I was online reading some article about this like designer who like took this old Airstream and converted it to his office and then parked it up on a bluff in California on some land that had been burnt out. And the landowners are like, yeah, absolutely, you could stay here. So cost him basically nothing. It was very much a minimalist sort of a story. And I forwarded the article to my wife and said, can we just do this? And then that night I got home from work and my wife's rocking my daughter to sleep. And I'm like, did you see that article I sent you, babe? And she goes, yeah, don't tempt me. And I said, are you serious? And she goes, are you serious? And so we ended up selling everything and getting an RV.
Wow.
And did the van life thing. Our daughter was 6 months old, and we had a great English bulldog named Samantha who came along for us. And we were full-timers, and we sold a bunch of what we owned, and we were full-timers for about a year. And the job that I took to make money, because I'm like, how should I? First of all, you learn how to live on way less. So, like, what sort of job should I take to make money? I found a company selling aerial photography, door to door. I thought that was cool because when I was a little kid and I would go out to my grandparents' farms, they had pictures of the farm from the air. And normally that would have been taken probably from the folks that were flying the crop dusters, but they would have kind of decades of photos up showing how the farm had changed. And this is when we built the new barn. This is what it looked like. And, you could see what it looked like in 1960 and, what it looked like in 1980 and that sort of thing. So I thought it was really, really neat. So I was an aerial photographer, door-to-door salesman. And boy, when you do, for those folks who have knocked on doors, like pretty soon from a sales standpoint, you're like, I am invincible. I could literally do anything to make money for my family. So I'd work like 3 days a week, and then we'd go out and wherever we were staying, we would go out and do touristy things, and it was an amazing experience. The synopsis of that is we learned how to live on way less, way less. Just don't need that much. You can't take it with you in the RV, so you got to figure out how to size down, and then you don't need as much money. So we learned how to live on way less. And then I learned that my title was just not that important. Like, nobody cared that I was an assistant vice president. Sounds like a Dwight Schrute. Assistant vice president at T. Rowe Price. Like, that was not a thing when you're knocking on doors selling aerial photography door to door, right?
Yep.
And it was only through that experience, I think, that I was able to launch into my tech career. Because imagine all of a sudden, it doesn't matter how much money you make, and it doesn't matter what your title is. What does that do for you in a sense of freedom? If the money didn't matter so much and the title didn't matter so much, what would you do? Now, I didn't have great answers to this question yet, but I had absolutely internalized those learnings, and I knew I wanted to enjoy I'm like, I just want to enjoy the people I'm working with. I want to enjoy the culture. I want to enjoy the place. I want to take joy in my work. That's the next thing I want to do. I want to find a great group of human beings that I want to go do something with. And so when we decided to come up back off the road, back to Colorado, I hit up my network, and one of my friends is like, "Hey, there's this tech company over here who they need someone to answer their support phones." And I'm like, I could crush that job. I'm like, "They want someone to answer their support phones?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I could crush that job. Who do I need to talk to?" So I met one of the co-founders and president, now a friend of mine, Darren Dawson, and he's like, "Hey, we need someone to answer the support phone." I'm like, "No problem." He's like, "Why do you want to do this, man? Your background's kind of why you want to do this?" So I had to kind of unpack that story for him, but I took a job answering the support phone at a 9-person tech company that was just getting off the ground. And pretty quickly, I'm gonna flash through this, and then we can double click anywhere we want. But we built a support site. We started setting up phone trees, put some of the first metricing in place for customer support measurement. I very quickly got on board the customer success train, got promoted to VP of customer success, then SVP of operations, then chief customer officer, then chief revenue officer. And that was, by the way, that happened over a 10 and a half year span. So this was not, I know people have really cool stories about doing that stuff in 3 years. That was not my thing. I did that over 10 and a half years. And I would also add that it's really rare that a company's growth trajectory and a human's growth trajectory parallel. It's very rare. Usually the company's growing faster than you are. This is why you see tech companies where executive have stints of 2.5 years or whatever the case may be, because they have expertise at a specific point of scale, right? And so they're going to call in the experts to handle that scale. And then that team is again going to transition, right? So very common that the company grows faster than the individual, and also very common that the individual grows faster than the company. This is also why sometimes you see short career stints, but they have a progression of growth. So I just happen to be fortunate enough that I had a decade where those things were pretty aligned for me. So that's the crazy story of how I got into a SaaS company.
I love that story. And remind John and I to introduce you to Colin, who's got
Oh,
a
yeah.
equally fascinating trailer story. But you mentioned the phrase, you can't take it with you, when it came to the RV. And I think that's an important phrase in life when you think about the consumer culture that we live in, and the things that really matter. You sort of unpacked what's important at that stage of your life, and I imagine, but maybe you can confirm, that through that process of just hitting the road for a year and living the minimalistic life, that it allowed you to be like ultimately flexible in like wherever you wanted to do what you were going to do to provide for your family. And then because of the skills you had gained, you were able to be successful in that role. So just comment on that, and then we can sort of walk through the transition into your life helping other people now as a consultant and coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll preface it with this. I have a very, very strong belief that, especially in developed countries, like the one that I'm recording from right now, human beings come to conclusions about their value based on how much they're getting paid and their identity based on their title. And I have a very strong belief, folks, that those deserve to be disrupted. I believe that human beings are invaluable. And I believe you can only scrape the surface on your identity apart from your title. But it is profound. It is unique. It is wired for a specific purpose. And so you're right to say, hey, when you live kind of minimalist, like it's this early privilege that I had to be like, oh, wait, I actually don't need that much. Actually, that's not quite what makes me happy. There are parts of that that make me happy, but look how happy I am sitting out here at on the coast of Monterey, making way less money than I was before. I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting to me, right? And same thing I think with title. I mean, yeah, maybe in this circle, people care about what your title is, but that's a pretty small circle. That's a pretty small circle, honestly, for most of us. And just go to the neighborhood barbecue, and they have no idea they're like, "What do you do again?" Oh, just totally don't get it, but it sounds amazing. That is a constantly evolving thought and a place where I spend a lot of time in coaching as well, because sometimes we get so stuck in associating our value to how much we get paid. That makes sense. It's reinforced every time you get a paycheck. And when you do something good, you get more money. So you're like, I'm valuable. That's literally how you assess value. It makes sense. It makes sense. I don't fault anybody. I'm just saying it's not true. I understand why you come to that conclusion. I just want to propose to you that it's not true. There's a different way to assess that value. And when you do disassociate your value from your pay and disassociate your identity from your title, when you do, and it takes work, it takes some interesting human experiences. Not everybody can get there. It's not like you can read a book or snap a finger and get there. But when you do, there is a tremendous amount of freedom to be realized in that space. So I just want to double down on that observation, Michael, about this kind of sense of like, well, now what? If I could do anything, now what? What am I going to do? Right.
And we talked to so many people on this show that reach those titles, that reach that place where they thought it was all going to be made, where they're going to have it made and no more worries, right? And then they wake up one day and realize they've been putting off goals and dreams and one step away from where they were and towards those goals and dreams, they realize how much happier they are,
Yep.
and so it's great. It reinforces what we're hearing on a daily basis.
It does. And JB, you said that a lot of what you just described is, at least in part, a component of your consulting and coaching engagements that you have with Bolton Co. And whether it's explicit or implicit with how you engage with companies and people through that process, I would love to hear a little bit more about what that looks like.
Yeah, totally. So when my time to Bomb came to a close, some of my most trusted advisors, my father included, by the way, said, hey, take some time. Don't jump into your next thing. That was really, really important for me. Kind of an interesting career trajectory. While I was at Bomb, I wondered if maybe I wanted to be a COO. During my stint as an SVP of Ops, I thought the next right step was COO. It was during a season where one of our co-founders could not be as involved in the business as the other. And so I had the opportunity to kind of move in and support the president of the company during that time. Well, what ended up happening is that co-founder came back into the business and all of a sudden kind of threes a crowd, and COO wasn't looking like a career path. And they're like, it was actually at that point that they're like, JB, we'd love for you to be our chief customer officer. That was another disruptive moment for me because I realized that I'm like, oh, if I want to do the COO thing or the CEO thing, it's probably not going to happen here. And I probably need to do something else. And I'm like, I better take a hard look at what I want to do. And so, similar to this experience that I had in financial services, I started to look around in the tech space at co-founders and say, do I want that? And listen, folks, there is a tremendous amount of unhealth in a business vertical whose charter is to make as much money as fast as possible. That is the charter. It is how it is funded. It is how it is held accountable. It is go at the only thing that matters is how quickly we can get this thing to make money. And so I had this reckoning about what do I really want out of my career? How much is enough? And I decided that I wanted to press into leadership. What I enjoyed most about my career, as crazy as this would sound, I was really good at one-on-ones with my leadership. I was incredibly good at building a leadership team. I remember having one-on-ones that I would go home that day having held a private conversation with somebody about their career trajectory. And I was like, man, that is the game. That is my jam. Holy smokes, that was significant. Gosh, that was right. And nobody cared. Like most leaders hate one-on-ones. There's articles all over right now about how to optimize your one-on-one. You just need to use this format and only do it once a month. Only do it once a month. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, if that's what leadership looks like to you, cool. That's just not my jam. So I found out I love doing these one-on-ones. So when my time with BombBomb came to a close, folks are like, hey, you need to take a breath before you jump into your next thing. And I'm like, okay. And so I started doing a little bit of consulting, like just to people are like, oh, you're not over there anymore. Hey, could you help us with blah, blah, blah. And so I started doing a little bit of consulting, and I had a meaningful interaction with a leader one day. We were working on a project around customer experience, and I was talking to this leader. I'm like, hey, when it comes to your churn and your recurring revenue, your job is not to carry that burden by yourself. Your job is to measure it, to track it, to communicate it, to hypothesize, and then walk into the leadership team and invite the leadership team to solve this company problem. Churn is not the customer success leaders or the CRO leaders' sole response. Now, they might be accountable for it. That's fine. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about leadership. And leadership means that you do not carry that by yourself. You communicate it. And you need to have some confidence to be able to roll into a leadership team or an executive boardroom and communicate what is not working, such that it does not an attack on your identity and value. Because you've got to invite the rest of the executive leadership team into this. Not that I have opinions on leadership or how to do this. And I'm having this conversation with this woman, and there's some emotion involved. And she's like, oh my gosh, JB, you have no idea how badly I needed to hear that. It was just this moment for me. It was one of those like one-on-one, like, God, that was a great conversation. So I'm having dinner with my wife and daughter that night, and I'm like, the consulting stuff's fine. It pays the bills, but these human beings inside these companies, that is my jam. Yeah. Boy, if I could do that all day and get paid for it, that's what I would do. And lo and behold, the next day, a total stranger on LinkedIn sends me a DM. Hi, I'm such and such. I live here. I work at this tech company. My boss just gave me money for executive coaching. I don't know if you'd consider taking on a client, but boy, if there's any chance. And I started weeping. I'm like, how is this in my inbox right now? And that was the pivot to get into the work that I do now. And coaching, I didn't even want to call my business coaching when I started. I actually called myself an executive architect because coaching can be pretty triggering.
I like it.
A pretty triggering word. It's not a heavily regulated industry. So there's some characters out. Listen, there's characters all over the place, but coaching especially, like, we get some characters in coaching. But I mean, think about it in terms of leadership development. Think about it in terms of mentorship. Think about it in terms of training. If you want to get better, hey, what about private lessons? Have you considered private lessons? That's what coaching with people that work in your field or with humans like you. That's why these top performers, these top athletes, these top executives make that investment in that coaching space. So
They do.
that
Yeah.
was the jump.
I love it.
You touched on the value that comes from one-on-one coaching and consulting with an individual to be the best version of themselves. And one of the things I hear coming out of the tech sector occasionally now that I completely and utterly disagree with is this notion of doing away with one-on-one connection with your direct reports. There are some leaders out there that say, I'm just going to, anything I tell one person, I'm going to tell to all this group of people. And for the person who's looking to that leader, whoever it is, CEO down, for some guidance and support so that they can continue on their own journeys. I mean, it's a special relationship, and I really struggle with that idea of like, yeah, there's no value here for either side.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, we're getting close on time here, JB, and you've shared with us your passion for helping others. It's your jam that you've talked about. And we always like to round out our show with practical advice that anybody can take with them and put into practice if they're contemplating or starting out in their second acts. And we would love to hear from you for our audience what that might be based on your life experience.
Yeah, great question. Start with compassionate curiosity. Start with compassionate curiosity. Why? Why this? What gives me life? Why is this unsettling? Why do I feel unhappy? Why does this give me energy? Why am I depressed? What am I hearing? What do I want to do? Why do I want to do it? Am I sure? Compassionately ask yourself those questions. It is a beautiful way to engage. Our job is to simply take steps closer and closer to our unique identity, to our true value. That is your job, just to be a better, more accurate version of your true self. That is the journey that all of us are on, including all of us on this podcast right now. And it's not completed. We are still taking steps. My father is still taking steps toward a better version of his true self, right? And that is what we are chartered to do. Don't get it twisted. It's not suddenly reinventing yourself next month. It does not work that way. It is one foot in front of the other. It's just a little bit closer to your unique wiring and design, to the intersection of your values and your passions. And so if you find yourself questioning your career, or you questioning your second act, or even beating yourself up over how you spent your first act, compassionate curiosity there. And that experience taught you something that has you sitting in a moment right now where you're reflecting and you're considering what's next. Keep going. Keep being curious. And don't put the cart before the horse. And don't try and give yourself the goal of like radical transformation necessarily, because sometimes just the next right step is the path toward the radical transformation. So that would be my encouragement toward our listeners today.
So good. JB, I'll tell you one thing puts a smile on my face is hearing you say that's my jam. Whether it's a coach or a home builder or somebody that's selling me a car or whatever their title is, whatever their job is, when they say this is my jam and that's why I'm doing it. I mean, that's who I'm going to be compelled to use, because they're living their best life at the moment. And I know that they're going to walk into the relationship with zeal
Mm.
for whatever lays ahead, whether it's a transaction or a relationship or, whatever it is. So I can fully appreciate you saying that. And I strive to encourage other young entrepreneurs or young people getting into fields that I've been into, whether it's military or sales, and do the same thing. Figure out your why and make that why the reason you go back every day. And as soon as that why changes or you can't identify it anymore, that's when you need to go do something else.
Yep.
So I love it.
John,
Yes.
what an incredible conversation we've
Dude.
just had with JB.
So good. I mean, that's what I want in a coach. I want a
Exactly.
coach I want a coach that's done a bunch of different things, that's tried, as Maurice Philogene said, try life on. He follows his passions. He follows the things that he thinks make him tick. And it gets, what is it called when you take a sauce and you take out the liquid and it gets more dense, right? Well, what's the word for it?
Reduced, like a
reduced.
reduction. Yeah.
Yeah. But it gets stronger. It gets filled with more flavor. And I think that's what happens as you get older and you try things is your why and your reasoning and your identification, it gets thicker. It gets, you're more true to those things. And, talking to JB, I'm like, man, I'm trying to figure out where I need coaching so I can give him a call and have him help out. So very, very, very tactile discussion. And I love hearing that resolve in people just like him. So yeah, great conversation.
JB, you were gracious enough to help me in my research and discovery about the pain points in the coaching world. And now you've been gracious enough to come on the show and share your story in terms of how you got there. And John and I can't thank you enough. And we want
Absolutely.
our audience to know how to find you if they want to talk to you more, as I definitely do and always do based on each and every one of our conversations. What is the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. You can find me online at boltonco.net. That's my last name, Bolton, Bolton, co for company, boltonco.net. Or if that's like a big ask for you, like let's just connect over on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
You better accept my request then. And we're going to hang out soon, I promise.
Look forward to it.
that's a
Gentlemen,
thing.
thank you so much
Yeah.
for having me. What an important conversation for so many people. When we do this well, we change sustainability and we change impact for the better. And to have a space to encourage humans to ask some questions and do some exploration here, I think is critical. So an honor to be part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on the show, JB. Michael, great job.
Another one down, John. We'll keep this
right.
incredible storytelling journey going.
Okay.
So until then,
Yeah. We'll see you.
we'll see ya.
The Second Act with Michael and John stars Michael Newborn and John Ballinger. The podcast is produced by Seltzer Kings. For more information on the show, check out michaelandjohn.com, or if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, give the guys a shout on their socials at The Second Act Movement on most platforms. Thanks for listening.
Did you know a lithium-ion battery fire can spread in seconds? The devices we carry every day in our pockets and onto planes and trains can pose serious risks to yourself and those around you if not handled correctly. Keep all battery-powered devices like phones, tablets, headphones, chargers where you can see them, and look out for warning signs like overheating, swelling, or strange smells. Now that you know the signs, you can take charge of battery safety. Visit batteryfiresafety.org to learn more.
Seltzer Kings.
Podcasts.